A senior manager stood up on a crowded train, looked down at a black woman with contempt, and refused to share her seat. He had no idea she was his new boss. 24 hours later, he was begging for permission to keep his job. This is the story of how one moment of prejudice cost a man everything he never earned and taught him what real authority looks like. The 7:42 a.m. commuter train from Riverside Station always smelled the same: burnt coffee, damp wool coats, and the metallic tang of too many bodies pressed into too little space. Martha Collins had made this journey 1,000 times before, but today felt different. Today, the leather portfolio balanced on her lap contained more than just files. It contained futures, careers that could rise or fall based on what she decided in the coming weeks. At 42, Martha had perfected the art of looking unremarkable while being extraordinary. Her navy suit was expensive but understated, her natural hair pulled back into a neat bun. Her brown skin carried the kind of quiet dignity that came from 20 years of proving herself in rooms that questioned whether she belonged there. She'd earned her MBA from Northwestern while working full-time. She'd turned around 3 struggling departments at Fortune 500 companies. She was known in the industry as the woman you called when everything was broken and you needed someone who could fix it without drama.
Culture problems, client losses, high turnover, fix it. That's what David Patterson, the CEO of Apex Marketing Solutions, had told her 3 days ago when he'd offered her the VP of Operations position. I don't care how you do it, just make it work. She'd spent the entire weekend locked in her home office, reviewing personnel files, financial reports, client feedback surveys. What she'd found wasn't just concerning, it was damning, a pattern of mediocrity protected by old relationships, talented people leaving, clients walking away, and at the center of it all, a handful of senior managers who seemed untouchable despite their declining performance. The train car filled quickly with the Monday morning crowd, financial analysts scrolling through market reports, lawyers reviewing briefs, consultants pretending their jobs were more important than they were. Martha claimed a window seat and immediately opened her portfolio, pulling out a stack of performance reviews. Her eyes moved quickly across the pages, her pen making sharp, precise notes in the margins. The doors were about to close when he boarded. Eric Brennan moved through the car with the easy confidence of someone who'd never been told no. Mid-30s, expensive charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, Italian leather shoes that clicked against the floor with each step. His jaw was set in that particular way that said he was important and he knew it. He scanned the crowded car, his eyes landing on the empty seat beside Martha.
He approached, already reaching for the seat, already preparing to sit down. Then he stopped. His eyes swept over her, a quick, efficient assessment that took in her brown skin, her gender, her presence in his space. Something flickered across his face, not quite disgust, but close enough. Discomfort, distaste, the kind of barely masked prejudice that men like him had learned to dress up in polite language. He stood back up, creating a tableau that made Martha's stomach tighten with familiar rage. Him standing, her sitting, him literally looking down at her, his height and position creating a visual hierarchy that everyone in the car could see. "I think I'll stand," he announced, loud enough for the passengers around them to hear. "Need the leg room." The lie was so transparent it was almost insulting. The train car had plenty of standing room elsewhere, but he chose to lean against the door directly across from her, making sure she could see his choice, making sure everyone could see it. His expression as he looked down at her carried that particular brand of condescension that Martha had encountered too many times in her career. The look that said, "I know what you are, and I know you don't belong here."
A middle-aged woman 2 seats down caught Martha's eye, her expression apologetic, embarrassed on behalf of humanity. Another passenger quickly looked away. Most pretended not to notice, burying themselves in their phones, their newspapers, their desperate desire not to be involved. Martha's face remained perfectly neutral. She didn't look up at him, didn't acknowledge the insult, didn't give him the satisfaction of a reaction. Inside, a familiar mantra played. Not surprised, not the first time, won't be the last time, just breathe. But as she lowered her eyes back to her files, something caught her attention, his company ID badge swinging from his jacket pocket as he shifted his weight. The logo was unmistakable. She'd been staring at it all weekend. Apex Marketing Solutions. And beneath the logo, a name, Eric Brennan, Senior Project Manager. Her pen paused mid-stroke. Eric Brennan. She knew that name. She'd seen it dozens of times in the files spread across her lap. Slowly, deliberately, Martha reached into her portfolio and pulled out a specific folder. The tab read, Brennan, Eric, Performance Review and Depth Assessment. She opened it, her eyes scanning the pages with new interest.
Client retention rate? 15 points below department average. Employee turnover on his team? 3 departures in 18 months, all citing cultural concerns in their exit interviews. Project delivery timelines? Consistently behind schedule. And yet his performance reviews, all written by the previous VP who'd conveniently retired last month, glowed with praise. The train lurched forward, beginning its journey downtown. Eric continued to stand, occasionally glancing down at her with that same expression, like she was something unpleasant he had to tolerate. He pulled out his phone, typed something, smirked at the response. Martha made a small notation in the margin of his file, then another. Her face betrayed nothing, but her mind was already 3 steps ahead, already calculating, already preparing. The morning sun cut through the grimy train windows, casting long shadows across the passengers. In 24 hours, Eric Brennan would walk into a conference room and discover that the woman he'd just refused to sit beside held his entire career in her hands. But right now, in this moment, he had no idea that the person he was looking down on was about to become the person looking into everything he'd ever done and finding it severely wanting.
Eric Brennan stepped off the elevator onto the 5th floor of Apex Marketing Solutions at exactly 8:34 a.m., still riding the small high that came from asserting dominance, even in something as trivial as a train seat. The operations department sprawled before him, open-plan workspace punctuated by glass-walled offices for senior managers, his corner office the largest of them all. He'd earned that space, 8 years of client schmoothing, golf outings, and knowing exactly which executives to flatter had bought him that view, that nameplate, that untouchable status. "Brennan, there he is," Tom Martinez called out from the coffee station, where the usual crew had already gathered. Tom, Steve Richardson, and David Webb, his inner circle, his boys' club, the men who'd built their own protective fortress within the company, all senior managers, all comfortable, all certain that their tenure meant more than any new VP's mandate. Eric grabbed a mug, poured himself coffee from the premium machine he'd convinced the previous VP to buy. "Gentlemen, beautiful Monday morning, isn't it?" "You seem chipper," Steve noted. "What happened? Close another deal over the weekend?" "Better." Eric leaned against the counter, lowering his voice just enough to draw them in. "You won't believe the morning I had on the train. Packed car, right? I find a seat, but this woman," he shook his head with exaggerated disbelief, "she's got her bags spread all over the place, taking up 2 seats like she owns the damn train."
Tom grimaced in solidarity. The worst. "So I had to stand the entire ride from Riverside, 40 minutes. Eric embellished the story with the ease of someone who'd rewritten his own narrative so many times he'd started believing his versions. Some people just have zero awareness, zero consideration for anyone else. They laughed, commiserated, bonded over the shared fiction of inconvenience. This was Eric's talent, turning his prejudices into grievances, his cruelty into comedy, his weakness into their collective strength.
David glanced toward the closed conference room down the hall. Speaking of awareness, you hear anything more about this new VP? The mood shifted immediately. This was the topic of the morning, the unknown variable about to enter their carefully balanced equation. Tom lowered his voice. I heard she's brutal. My buddy at the London office said she cleaned house there. 3 senior managers gone in her first 2 months. Eric waved dismissively, sipping his coffee. Another management consultant type. Trust me, I've been here 8 years. I've seen 5 of these so-called transformations. They all follow the same playbook. Come in talking about change, shuffle some papers around, realize they actually need us to run things, then quietly back off. You really think so? Steve sounded less certain.
Think about it, Eric said, his confidence absolute. We run the client relationships. We deliver the revenue. We know where the bodies are buried. He smirked at his own metaphor. She'll figure out pretty quickly that she needs us more than we need her. Tom wasn't convinced. But what if she doesn't? What if she actually tries to change things? Eric laughed, the sound carrying across the open workspace. Then she'll fail like all the others. This place doesn't run on org charts and mission statements, Tom. It runs on relationships, history, loyalty. We're untouchable. He said it like a fact, like gravity or mathematics. Untouchable. The conversation drifted to weekend football scores as Eric made his way to his corner office, his kingdom, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, his name etched on brushed metal beside the door, Eric Brennan, Senior Project Manager. Inside, his degrees hung prominently on the wall, credentials he'd stopped earning the moment they were framed. His desk was expensive dark wood, always slightly messy in that way that suggested he was too important to worry about organization. He dropped into his leather chair, propped his feet on the desk, and scrolled through personal emails. A junior associate passed by his open door, hesitated, then kept walking without greeting him. That was the culture he'd built, fear masquerading as respect. His assistant, Cynthia, appeared with a fresh coffee he hadn't asked for, setting it down silently. Eric didn't look up from his phone, didn't say thank you. She'd learned years ago not to expect it. At 9:43 a.m., his computer chimed with a new email, company-wide from CEO David Patterson. The subject line made his stomach tighten slightly. Mandatory meeting, all operations department staff. The message was brief. Mandatory operations department meeting, 10 a.m. sharp, main conference room. All attendance required, no exceptions. Eric's phone buzzed immediately. The group chat with Tom, Steve, and David lit up. Tom, you see this? Steve, here we go. David, meeting the new boss. Eric typed back quickly. Time to meet the new VP and pretend to care. See you guys there. He closed his laptop, stood, straightened his tie. Around him, the operations floor buzzed with nervous energy. Junior staff whispered to each other. Senior managers exchanged knowing looks. Everyone was performing the ritual of pretending this meeting would matter, while privately believing nothing would really change. Eric checked his reflection in his office window. Suit sharp, tie perfect, expression confident. He'd played this game before with every new executive who tried to make their mark. He knew how it worked. Smile, nod, outlast them. As he walked toward the conference room, Tom fell into step beside him. You ready for this? Eric's smile was pure arrogance. I was born ready. Besides, how bad can she be? They had no idea that down in the lobby, at that exact moment, Martha Collins was signing in at the security desk, her leather portfolio under her arm, Eric's performance files sitting right on top of the stack. They had no idea that the woman from the train, the woman whose seat he'd refused, the woman he'd looked down on with such casual contempt, was about to walk into that conference room and reveal that everything they thought was untouchable was about to be dismantled piece by systematic piece. The conference room door stood open, waiting. Eric walked toward it like a king entering his throne room, completely unaware he was actually walking toward his execution.
If you believe accountability still matters in leadership, if you believe respect isn't optional, subscribe, because stories like this deserve to be told. The main conference room filled quickly, 35 employees jostling for seats, their nervous energy palpable. Eric entered with Tom, Steve, and David, his confidence still intact, his laughter still loud. They claimed seats near the back, the traditional territory of senior managers who wanted to observe rather than participate, who saw these meetings as formalities rather than forums. "Wonder if she'll last 6 months," Eric whispered to Tom, loud enough for the row in front to hear. A few people glanced back, some with nervous smiles, others with expressions that suggested they'd heard this performance before. At the front of the room, CEO David Patterson stood beside someone they couldn't quite see, a woman in a navy suit, her back turned, reviewing notes on a tablet. Professional, prepared, anonymous.
David cleared his throat, and the room settled into uneasy silence. "Thank you all for coming. I know you've been wondering about our new VP of Operations, and I'm excited to finally introduce you." Eric took a sip of his coffee, settling back in his chair with the relaxed posture of someone watching a show that didn't concern him. "We brought in someone with a proven track record of transforming underperforming departments," David continued. "She's already spent the weekend reviewing our files, and she's ready to hit the ground running." The woman at the front still hadn't turned around. Something about her stillness felt deliberate, controlled, like a drawn bowstring. "Please welcome Martha Collins, our new Vice President of Operations." She turned. The world tilted sideways. Eric's coffee cup froze halfway to his mouth. The liquid inside trembled, creating tiny ripples that matched the sudden earthquake in his chest. His face drained of color so quickly that Tom immediately noticed, leaning closer. "You okay, man?" Eric couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't process what his eyes were telling him.
It was her, the woman from the train, the woman whose seat he'd refused, the woman he'd looked down on with such casual contempt less than 2 hours ago. Martha's eyes scanned the room with the calm efficiency of someone conducting an inventory. When they landed on Eric, they didn't pause with recognition or anger, just assessment, cold, clinical, measuring. That made her feel even more dangerous. Polite applause rippled through the room. Eric's hands remained frozen on his coffee cup. "Thank you, David," Martha said, her voice carrying the same calm authority Eric had heard on the train when she'd said nothing at all. "I'm excited to be here and to work with all of you." She stepped forward, commanding the space without demanding it. "I believe in transparency, accountability, and excellence. I've spent 20 years in operations management, and I've learned that the best teams are built on mutual respect and merit-based performance." The words mutual respect hit Eric like a physical blow. He sank lower in his seat, trying to rewind time, trying to undo the morning. Martha made eye contact with various employees as she spoke. "Over the next 2 weeks, I'll be meeting with each of you individually to discuss your projects, your challenges, and your goals." A slide appeared on the screen behind her, cold, damning data. "I've already begun reviewing department metrics. We have some significant challenges. Client retention is down 18%, employee turnover is above industry average, and project delivery timelines have slipped considerably." Eric's colleagues shifted uncomfortably. These were numbers they'd learned to explain away, to contextualize, to blame on market conditions or difficult clients or bad luck. "But," Martha continued, her tone shifting slightly warmer, "I also see tremendous potential. We have talented people and strong client relationships. My job is to unlock that potential." For a moment, the room relaxed. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad. Maybe she was just another VP who talked tough but changed nothing. Then her next words landed like a hammer on glass. However, I won't tolerate behaviors that undermine our culture. Respect, inclusion, and professionalism aren't optional, they're foundational. Her eyes swept to Eric's section of the room, and though she didn't single him out, he felt the weight of her gaze like a physical thing. If you're here to do excellent work and support your colleagues, you'll thrive. If you're here to coast on past performance or relationships, that ends today. The silence that followed was absolute. The old guard, Eric's crew, the untouchables, exchanged glances that contained the first flickers of real fear. "Thank you all," Martha concluded. "Let's get to work." The meeting dissolved into movement and nervous chatter. Eric shot to his feet, desperate to escape, to process, to figure out what the hell had just happened. He was halfway to the door when a woman in her 30s, carrying a tablet and wearing the crisp efficiency of an executive assistant, intercepted him. "Mr. Brennan?" He stopped, his throat dry. "Miss Collins would like to see you in her office, Thursday, 2 p.m. Please bring documentation of your current projects and your last 3 performance reviews." Eric nodded numbly, unable to form words. The assistant smiled professionally and moved on to her next target.
He walked back to his desk in a daze, his mind replaying everything: the train, the look, the standing, the contempt. His colleagues swarmed him immediately. "Dude, what's wrong?" Steve grabbed his shoulder. "You look like you saw a ghost." Eric sank into his chair, his hands trembling. "That's her, from the train. That's the woman from the train." Tom's eyes widened. "Wait, what?" "The woman I told you about this morning," Eric's voice cracked. "The one with the bags, the one I had to stand for, the one who—" He stopped, reality crashing down. "That's her. She's my new boss." "Oh, shit," David breathed. "Oh, shit is right," Tom echoed, his face pale. "What did you say about her this morning? What exact words did you use?" Eric's computer chimed. New email from Martha Collins' assistant. Meeting confirmation, Thursday, 2 p.m. Below that, a detailed list of required documentation, performance reviews, client feedback reports, team retention metrics, project timelines. His hands shook as he clicked open the message. At the bottom, a final line. "Please be prepared to discuss your leadership approach and departmental culture contributions." Eric leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling, his 8-year kingdom crumbling around him. She'd spent the weekend reviewing files. She already knew his numbers. She already knew his failures. And now she knew his character. He closed his eyes and saw her face on the train, calm, dignified, silent. He'd thought her silence meant powerlessness. He'd been catastrophically wrong.
His phone buzzed. A calendar reminder. Thursday, 2 p.m., meeting with VP Operations Martha Collins. 48 hours. He had 48 hours before he had to walk into her office and face the consequences of a moment when he thought no one who mattered was watching. Turns out, the person who mattered most had been watching all along. The next 2 weeks moved with the methodical precision of a surgeon's scalpel. Martha scheduled one-on-ones with every member of the operations department, starting from the bottom up: junior associates, project coordinators, team leads, the people who actually did the work, the people who saw everything but were rarely asked to speak. Paula Neely was 28, sharp as a blade, and carried the exhausted look of someone who'd been fighting uphill for too long. She sat across from Martha in the small conference room, her hands folded tightly in her lap. "Tell me about your experience on Eric's team," Martha said, her pen poised over her notepad. Paula hesitated. Then something broke loose. "He takes credit for our work. In client meetings, he presents our strategies, our analysis, our solutions. But it's always, 'I developed this approach,' or 'my team executed my vision.' When we've tried to push back, tried to get our names on presentations, he calls us not team players." Her voice cracked slightly. "I've been here 4 years. I've never been promoted. I've never even been acknowledged."
Martha wrote quickly, asked clarifying questions, her face professionally neutral even as her mind cataloged each piece of evidence. James Rodriguez came next, 32, talented, visibly frustrated. "I've been passed over for promotion 3 times," he said, his jaw tight. 3 times. Each time, Eric told me I wasn't ready, that I needed to develop more leadership presence. Meanwhile, guys with half my experience got promoted. White guys, on his team, guys who golf with him on weekends. The pattern emerged like a photograph developing in chemicals. Not one incident, but a system. Not one complaint, but a culture. Martha spent her evenings reviewing client files, cross-referencing dates and notes, building timelines. 2 major clients had left in the past year, Harrison Industries and Westfield Capital. Combined annual revenue, $847,000. Both exit interviews cited similar issues: unprofessional conduct, poor communication, felt disrespected during the pitch process. One note from Harrison Industries' CMO was particularly damning. Eric Brennan made inappropriate comments about our female executives and seemed dismissive of our concerns. "We cannot continue a partnership with a firm that operates this way." She examined Eric's project portfolio next: 6 active projects, 4 running behind schedule, budget overruns averaging 23% above projections, client satisfaction scores declining quarter over quarter. Yet his performance reviews, all written by the previous VP who'd conveniently retired to Florida last month, glowed with praise. Exceeds expectations across the board, strong leader, client favorite, essential to department success. The discrepancy wasn't just glaring, it was evidence of institutional protection.
Martha pulled employee exit interviews from HR. 3 talented people had left Eric's team in 18 months. Their reasons? Buried in bureaucratic language but clear enough: hostile work environment, lack of growth opportunities, felt consistently undervalued and overlooked. She ran the numbers. $2.3 million. That's what Eric's leadership had cost Apex: departed clients, recruitment costs, training investments in people who'd taken their talents elsewhere. $2.3 million in quantifiable damage, not counting the immeasurable cost of crushed morale and squandered potential. By Thursday morning, Martha had built her case, not based on a train incident, not based on personal grievance, based on documented, systematic, professional failure. At 2:45 p.m., Eric arrived at her office 15 minutes early, his shirt already showing sweat stains despite the climate control. He'd rehearsed his defenses all morning: explanations for the client departures, justifications for the delayed projects, reasons why the exit interviews didn't tell the full story. He had answers prepared for everything. Martha's assistant looked up from her desk. "Mr. Brennan, Miss Collins is finishing a call. She'll be with you in 15 minutes. Please have a seat." Eric sat in the waiting area, his leather portfolio clutched like a shield. Through the glass wall of Martha's office, he could see her on the phone, taking notes with that same focused precision he'd seen on the train. She didn't look up once, didn't acknowledge his presence. She was completely in command of the call, the space, the situation, him. The minutes stretched like hours. Eric watched her in the call, review her notes, open a thick folder on her desk, his folder. He recognized the tab from across the room. At exactly 2 p.m., Martha's assistant stood. "Mr. Brennan, Miss Collins will see you now." Eric's legs felt unsteady as he stood. His rehearsed defenses suddenly seemed flimsy, inadequate, transparent. He walked toward her office door, toward the woman he'd dismissed on a train, toward the reckoning he'd spent 8 years avoiding. Martha looked up as he entered, her expression professionally neutral, giving away nothing. But on her desk, he could see papers spread out in organized stacks:
performance reviews, client files, exit interviews, financial reports, documentation, evidence, truth. "Please close the door, Mr. Brennan," she said quietly. "We have a lot to discuss." The door clicked shut with the finality of a coffin lid. Through the glass walls, Eric's colleagues watched, their faces pressed close, wondering if their own kingdoms were next. Eric entered Martha's office, and she gestured to the chair across from her desk. For a brief moment, she remained standing, him seated, her elevated, the train car dynamic completely inverted. Then she sat, placing a thick folder between them like evidence at a trial. "Thank you for coming, Eric. I've been reviewing your portfolio and performance history." His defensive posture formed instantly. "I know what this is about." "This is about your professional performance," Martha cut him off, her voice calm but edged with steel. "Let's stay focused on that."
She opened the folder with deliberate precision. "You've been with Apex for 8 years. For the first 5 years, your trajectory was strong. Good client relationships, solid project delivery, team development." Eric exhaled slightly. Maybe this wouldn't be catastrophic. But in the last 3 years, there's been a significant decline. She slid the first document across the desk. "Let's review the data. Your client retention rate, 67%. Department average, 82%. Industry standard, 85%. Another document. Project delivery timelines. Your team, average 3.2 weeks behind schedule. Department average, 1.1 weeks behind. "Those are complicated projects," Eric started. "Employee retention." Martha's voice grew sharper. "You've lost 5 team members in 18 months. 3 specifically cited you in their exit interviews." She read aloud. "Felt undervalued, lack of professional respect, biased promotion decisions." Eric's face flushed. Those are disgruntled employees with axes to grind. 2 of them were top performers who are now excelling at competitor firms. 1 just won an industry award. Martha slid more pages across. Client feedback. Harrison Industries, who left us 6 months ago, wrote, "We were dissatisfied with the lack of professionalism and respect shown during our partnership." That client was impossible to please. They've since partnered with our competitor and publicly praised their inclusive approach. "We lost a $400,000 annual contract." Martha leaned forward. "Eric, I've calculated that your declining performance has cost Apex approximately $2.3 million over the past 3 years in lost revenue and turnover costs." Eric's desperation surfaced. "Look, I know we got off to a bad start, but—" "The train?" Martha's eyes locked onto his. He nodded, looking down. "The train incident was personal. This," she gestured to the files, "is professional. These 2 things are separate." She leaned back. "But let me be clear about something. The way you treated me on that train, standing over me, looking down with contempt, making sure everyone saw your disdain, that wasn't an isolated moment of bad judgment. It's consistent with a pattern of how you treat people you perceive as beneath you, colleagues, team members, clients. I've been here 8 years. I have relationships with senior leadership. David knows my value. David Patterson approved this meeting and is aware of everything we're discussing. He's seen the same data." Martha slid a final document across the desk. "Effective immediately, you're being reassigned from senior project manager to junior associate. You'll report to Paula Neely, who you've been supervising." Eric's face went white. "You're demoting me?"
"You'll be placed on a 6-month performance improvement plan. You'll receive clear metrics and expectations. You'll also complete mandatory diversity, equity, and inclusion training." "This is because of the train? You're punishing me for one mistake." "I'm holding you accountable for years of poor performance and biased decision-making." Martha's voice remained terrifyingly calm. "The train incident revealed your character. These files proved its impact on business outcomes." She stood, ending the meeting. You have two choices. Accept this plan and use the next 6 months to demonstrate you can change, or resign. You have until Monday to decide. Everyone will know I was demoted. I'll be a laughingstock. That's called consequences, Eric. You spent years treating people with disrespect, costing this company money and talent. This is accountability. She opened her office door. Your character isn't what you do when the boss is watching. It's what you do on a crowded train when you think no one who matters is watching. I didn't know. That's exactly the problem. You didn't think you needed to know. You thought you could treat people badly without consequence because they didn't have power over you. She met his eyes with devastating clarity. Now you know differently. Monday morning, 9 a.m. Let me know your decision.
Eric walked out, his colleagues' faces pressed against glass walls, watching his humiliation unfold in real time. The whispers started immediately, spreading like wildfire through the department. But what Eric didn't know, what none of them knew yet, was that Martha had already scheduled a company-wide email for Monday morning. And it wasn't just about his demotion. It was about the complete restructuring of the operations department, with specific examples of behavior that would no longer be tolerated. His name wouldn't be mentioned directly, but everyone would know exactly who she was talking about. The real reckoning hadn't even started yet. Monday morning arrived like a public execution. Eric moved his belongings from his corner office to a cubicle near Paula Neely's desk, each box a monument to his fall. Former colleagues who'd laughed at his train story now averted their eyes. The boys' club group chat went silent. His calls went unreturned. Paula appeared at his cubicle, professional but distant. "Let's talk about your first assignment." "Yes, ma'am," Eric said, the words foreign in his mouth. His first DEI training session felt like exposure therapy. Unconscious bias in the workplace. The facilitator asked participants to share a time they'd made assumptions about someone. Silence stretched uncomfortably. Then Eric spoke. "I refused to sit next to a black woman on a train." His voice cracked. "I stood over her, looked down at her, made sure everyone saw my contempt. I thought I was better than her, because of how she looked." He paused. "She's now my boss. I was wrong about everything." The room went deadly quiet. "What did it cost you?" the facilitator asked gently. "Everything I thought made me valuable."
3 months crawled by. Eric stayed late, working meticulously on projects for Paula, asking for feedback instead of assuming authority. One evening, she reviewed his analysis. "This is good, really good. Keep it up." "Thank you. And Paula?" He met her eyes. "I'm sorry for how I treated you before." "I know. Your apology isn't what matters. Your actions are. Keep showing up like this." He did, listening in meetings instead of dominating, crediting others' ideas instead of claiming them. His metrics slowly improved, but the real change was invisible. The way junior staff stopped tensing when he approached, the way collaboration replaced competition. 6 months after his demotion, Martha called a department-wide meeting. Operations is now the top-performing unit in the company, 94% client retention, 15% revenue growth, lowest turnover in company history. She recognized top performers, people previously overlooked. Then, "I also want to acknowledge most improved, Eric Brennan. He's demonstrated that growth is possible when we examine our biases and change our behavior. He's completed his performance improvement plan ahead of schedule." Polite applause. Eric looked genuinely humbled. Afterward, he approached her. "Thank you for not giving up on me." "I didn't give up on you. I gave you consequences and an opportunity. You did the work yourself."
"Why did you give me the chance to stay?" Martha considered him. "Because firing you would have been easy. Helping you become better serves everyone. You, the people you work with, the company. That's what leadership is. Her expression hardened slightly. But Eric, if you slip back into old patterns, you're done. This is your only second chance. Understood. It won't happen again. 1 year later, the 7:42 a.m. train. Martha boarded, claimed her window seat. The car filled quickly. A young black woman in professional attire searched for space. Eric, already standing near the door, immediately gestured to his seat. "Please, take mine." "Thank you," she said, surprised by the kindness. He stood for the entire ride, not from contempt, but from choice. Across the car, he caught Martha's eye. She gave him the smallest nod of acknowledgement. Martha exited at her stop, walking confidently toward Apex Marketing Solutions. The company logo gleamed. Operations Division, #1 in client satisfaction. Her nameplate on the office door read, Martha Collins, Vice President of Operations. She entered, ready for another day of leading with excellence. But as she settled at her desk, her assistant appeared with urgent news. "Miss Collins, David Patterson needs to see you immediately. There's been a complaint about Eric Brennan." Martha's stomach tightened. She'd given him one chance. One. "What kind of complaint?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral. The assistant's expression was unreadable. He didn't say, just that it's serious, and it involves a client. Martha closed her eyes briefly. Had she been wrong about redemption? Had she mistaken performance for transformation? Had Eric simply learned to hide his prejudice better, only to reveal it when he thought no one important was watching, again? She stood, straightening her suit. "Tell David I'll be right there." As she walked toward the CEO's office, one question burned through her mind. Had she just proven that people can change, or that some people never really do? The man who stood up to avoid sitting beside a black woman ended up standing for 6 months on every train ride, not because he had to, but because he finally understood what respect looked like. He lost his corner office, his title, and his sense of unearned superiority, but he gained something more valuable, the understanding that competence, not comfort, creates authority. Martha didn't destroy Eric, she gave him the rarest gift, the truth about himself and the opportunity to become better. She proved that real power doesn't announce itself by standing over people. It sits down, opens the files, and lets the evidence speak. Sometimes the person who dismisses you becomes your greatest responsibility, and if you lead with both accountability and integrity, they might just become proof that people can change when the consequences are clear and the path forward is fair. That's not revenge, that's leadership.